Well, hello there, and welcome to another edition of Warbird Wednesday. My name is Fred Bell. I'm the Vice Chairman of the Palm Springs Air Museum, and we are back with individual episodes after the excursion out at Pax River. Of course, my Rancivial friend, Greg Kenny, has quaffed me. This looks to me like Dumbledore, Dork, whatever it is, but shows you how much I know about Harry Potter. But it hasn't sent me to a house yet, Greg, but it does say Merry Christmas. So to all of you, we're shooting this week, and we will have a Christmas episode next week, of course. But I am going to go ahead and pull off this cap before it cuts off my circulation. And I'm rusty on the toss, but look at that, right into the hands of the great Kenny. Now, we are doing a series on transport cargo airplanes in the military. Now, we've done some of those in the past. You're saying, Fred, you've done a few of those. We have, but Greg, I'm going to unearth some gems, some absolute gems. And the first one, remember in this series, I have talked about, since we started, designers will go back and look at previous technology. And if they think they see something in a design that they really like, whether it's the Focke-Wulf and which is arguable in the Bearcat, for an example, some design cues. There are aircraft that you can definitely see that designers took some design cues. Well, today we have a buried gem, Greg, a buried gem. We are going back to the Germans, and we're going in transport aircraft. We're going all the way back to 1940 with the Arado, the AR-232, the Millipede. Now, the interesting thing about this aircraft, it was built in very, very small numbers. But, in fact, there was only 20 of them built. If we're going to get specific, it was first flown in 1942. But now think about this. This is an aircraft, and I'm going to show you the design cues on this. And this is arguably, when I show you these, you're going to go, this looks like a 1950s transport airplane. And you're going to see a lot of design cues that you have to assume that some of the engineers saw some of the design cues on this airplane and picked them up. So the aircraft that we're going to use, a Fairchild C-119 as our example aircraft, and you'll understand why in a moment. But the Millipede, the 232, was actually ordered by the Air Ministry in 1940. Now, the reason they wanted it is the Germans were continuing to look for transport aircraft. They knew war was coming, and they were trying to figure out how to move cargo. And so they came up with a specification in the Air Ministry that was for a rough field. Now, you have to think about that. Rough field in those days, everything could land on a rough field if you think about that. But an unimproved field aircraft that could land on an unimproved field aircraft that had really good lift. Remember, at that time, we've talked about the area rule before. The Germans were really, in their wind tunnels, were looking at the area rule. So they were really thinking about the area rule when it came to some of their cargo airplanes. But they were really reliant on an airplane that we are going to feature in this. I don't normally do that, but the Ju-52, the Junker, the Ju-52. But the 232 was different. Now, why was the 232 different? The 232 was different. Now, I'm going to throw up a plan view, and Greg can throw up a plan view of the 232. And maybe, Greg, I'm going to ask you today to do something for me. Throw up the 119 and throw up the 232 side by side. The interesting thing about the 232 was that it had a rear opening door that opened. It also had a ramp that came down. Although it didn't have a split tail, it had a high tail. So think about this. You're dealing with a transport aircraft that has a box fuselage, like almost all of our transport airplanes, a ramp that lowered in the back, and a high loading tail. Now, this is in 1940, and Wilhelm van Ness was the designer of this aircraft. Now, it had a challenge initially on the power plants in that the designers originally wanted to use the BMW 801 engine on it, and they couldn't. Why was that, Greg? The FW190. They weren't able to use that, so they used the BMW 323. There were concerns on this aircraft about resources. The Reichsministry called it an aluminum hog, and so they ended up they were not in favor of it. And we're going to talk about what happened at the end when we start talking about resources. But they went ahead and they got the airplane to the first flight. Walter Kroger was the first guy who flew the airplane. The airplane was actually relatively docile, and they knew they had a winner on their hands. But the problem was it chewed up so much resources that the Germans, remember the Germans had made a mistake. And the Reichsministry and the Air Ministry mistake was too many competing designs. They had so many competing designs that they missed the transport, an effective transport airplane. This would have been an extremely effective transport aircraft for them, as opposed to a tail dragger, the Ju-52, with, you could see the advantage of having a ramp and a rear loading aircraft and a high loading bay on that. And they missed that. They missed also long range bomber. The Condor was the largest, longest range, pretty much reconnaissance bomber they had. If you look at the various fighters, they did not have enough resources to produce these in numbers, which is why the low build rate. Now, what I'm going to do today is I'm going to salute a group of people that don't normally get a lot of kudos. And you know who those people are, Greg? It is the folks that move cargo, that make stuff happen. We're talking about all the supply chain challenges that we have and everything. The military, and this is in modern times, look at the Ukraine-Russian war and the problems the Russians are having with logistics. If you don't have your logistics sorted out and you consume all that material, especially when you're fighting, if you can't resupply, you lose the day. 9 times out of 10, it's not a very glamorous job, whether you're refueling airplanes at today's Air Force or you're moving cargo. But those folks are the unsung heroes of any war or any army. So today, Greg, we are back with soda. I have steeled myself for it. Well, today you went rather mild on a return. Reading Draft Strawberry Cream Soda. This is actually, I think, something I recommended. Full disclosure, with the Dumbledore hat. Merry Christmas. And it is a premium reserve soda, caffeine-free, pure cane sugar. I talk about the pure cane sugar mafia. There they are. 160 calories, so a little bit lighter on the intake. But we're going to give it a shot. So to all of you cargo movers out there, cargo haulers, our unsung heroes, I salute you. That's pretty good. Craig, you're slipping, man. I expected the day back I was going to be dealing with like botulism central, but this is not bad. Merry Christmas, Greg. To the hat, Merry Christmas. So what ended up happening is there continued to be a fight within the German Air Ministry on the production of this airplane. There was a group within the German Air Force that felt, hey, we have the Ju-52, we're building the Gigant, we're building all these. And think about that for a second. Greg can throw up the Gigant. The Germans wasting resources on aircraft like that when they had a competing design in the 232 that was actually a really, really good airplane. But they were so torn they couldn't coalesce around a design. Now, these aircraft were used, the 20 were used to good measure. First, they proved everything that we talked about. They were great rough field airplanes. They had great cargo capacity. They were relatively tough. They were used in Stalingrad to resupply the troops until the aircraft was lost. Remember, very finite numbers. So they're used in Stalingrad, they're used throughout the war. They were actually even used in the fall of Germany, and the Germans used them, the few remaining copies, 3 or 4 copies that were left, to bring people out from the Russians as the Russians were advancing. Now, the sad part about this is that one of the 232s, the British, we've talked about the British War Museum, and by the way, I'm going to give the British another hats off here. This is a good soda. Wet my whistle there, Greg. I don't normally come back to the soda. The British filled a 232 with war loot and flew it back to Britain and took it to Farnborough. So the aircraft was sitting at Farnborough. Now, at that time, think about this. It's one of the last 232s in existence at that point. Maybe there's 4 or 5, and the others are badly damaged in Europe. This aircraft was sitting in Farnborough in 1947, up to 1947. It was scrapped. It was slated to be a display, and it was scrapped, and it was lost. But the design cues, I will argue that if you look at especially American cargo aircraft in the 1950s, there is no question that the 232, and you can argue with me in the comment section, that the 232 played a role in that. Unfortunately, there is not one example that I know of. Maybe one will turn up, or if somebody who watches the channel there's a piece or a part of one laying around somewhere, because you never know, there might be. But the 232 at that point was scrapped, and it went into history. But we dug it up today. Now, it's almost before Christmas, and you need something from the Air Museum gift shop. This is, Greg put this out, this is actually really cool. This is an altimeter clock. So you can take this clock and you can put it on your desk. You can hang it on the wall. It's perfect for hanging. It's got a little motor there with a battery, but I think that is really cool. So Greg will include that in the link. We'll get you one of those out. Hopefully we can get it out by Christmas. Jason can try to do that. So click on the link and in the description, and you can get yourself one of those cool clocks. Now, if you've come across us on YouTube, all we do are long-form military aviation aircraft videos. Give us a subscription and a comment if you could do that. If you come across us on Facebook, give us a like and a comment. We also have a little thing down there, and it is towards the end of the year. We are a nonprofit. What a better opportunity to donate than to the Air Museum. We can always use those donations for education. Remember, in the description, we also have, if you're a teacher, we actually have our teacher's guides links in the program. So you can actually download our teacher's guide if you want and use that for your classroom. We encourage you to do that. My name is Fred Bell. I am the Vice Chairman of the Palm Springs Air Museum. Thanks so much for joining us. Have a great day.